Will any of you vote on arguments you don't understand? Not that I think it might be relevant at all in this round.
No.
I mean, how could anyone?
Okay,
I've seen it done.
Alright, cool.
I'm kidding. Jokes.
You didn't at least pretend to understand.
Honestly, not even. Honest man.
Alrighty, is everyone good?
Yep.
Cool. I affirm only the pragmatist that can account for the uncertainty of the external world. Law 7 on doing the world of action involves an activity that I know where remove uncertainty about our philosophy is contingent knowledge as private philosophers avoid the imaginative, in which interpretive is between the ordinary and extraordinary, and until we see ourselves our activity is one of constant adaptation, just minimally the limit. Conditions of existence philosophy must give up inquiry after absolute origins and turn into only conditions of experience to generate specific qualities of eternal experience we give up. Efforts to secure a world by means of transcending our efforts obligated in practical activity, not quest for certainty. There is no way to explain the meaning of a word without limiting the sphere of meaning to what makes a practical difference. Otherwise, there could be no fact of the matter that allows for adversary assessment here. What do I mean by calling the hard to consider this quality license conceive effects? There is no difference between everything and those something, as long as there are the questions that test the question of what way a correct or circumstances which do not arise does not question factor only the most perspicuous arrangement of them. He continues if we know the effects of our action of force we are acquainted with every fact which is applied and saying force exists that requires a Dewey and democracy to warrant a point. The demands of an ethical theory must be responsive to the conditions in which agents live. That demands a Deweyan theory of democracy. London 2K summarizes in quotes Dewey only society that converted all the citizens to would be free since the objective truth is nothing that can be discovered. The reason epistemology preoccupation with foundations of knowledge must be abandoned in philosophy. Do tell the necessity of philosophy that would bind America to a moral community market. Philosophy must be born out of responding to demands of democracy solely knowledge external to experience human beings are deprived of capacity to control institutions that affect their lives. Democracy was evident the ideal of self-realization. All freedom was the opportunity to actualize oneself as a social being. Democracy can be seen as organic and synergistic and evolving. The rationale for education was to make democracy work as education for democracy was impossible and institutions sealed off from society subjugating civic self-determination in the name of efficient government can never be consistent with true democracy. Direct participation in democracy would foster non-expected self-reliant cooperation and ordinary citizens be. We cannot just look at which policies best accomplish our purposes. We must insert procedural mechanisms for social decision-making and allow for pragmatic advancement given changing hands. That supports a pragmatic theory of democracy. Dewey. Democratic political forms rest on the idea that no person is supposed to enough to rule others that consent all effective by social institutions thus having share producing a managing of solution where participation is direction of their source must be wiser and have power deciding question methods by which subjects may rise and enjoyment of what is the definition of democracy is not that things are flipped and that they will grow and generate progressively knowledge needed to good collective actions. Democratic faith is that each shall have the chance and opportunity to contribute whatever she is capable of contributing without that. Individuals are not free to develop in societies deprived of what they may contribute. Thus, the standard is consistency with democratic decision procedure. Clarification. First, democracy plays a procedural, not substantive role in the pragmatic decision. Does not tell us what impacts matter most, nor is it just another impact to weigh against. Instead, it's a decision procedure that tells us what questions to ask and how we determine answers to this question. It would not matter if Japanese determined would have improved safety because the government cannot rightly even consider the structurally non-democratic policy of winning out significant benefits in particular. These restrictions just do not matter if we are precluded from factoring these considerations into our deliberations. Second, impacts cannot be isolated from their history. Arguments that claim some particular speech restriction is good do not matter if they don't consider the history of such a substance doing. Existence simply determines nothing more depends upon many considerations we find historically live maintaining integrity of social life for this theorization or this guarantee the theory establishes presumption of validity. Now, I'll prefer additionally one only Dewey's pragmatic theory of democracy can actualize the groundless and relational delusion subject in the socio-political world. Rosenberg, starting 16, summarizes Bignell. The problem is lack of full-fledged political philosophy and illusories elaborated and understanding philosophy that undercut that encourages redefining our identity seems to lose the kind of the way in which we can substitute ourselves to lose subjects to either completely in terms of their distinct or really determined by external contingencies, but always involved in negotiation with different sources and experimental negotiation of individuality when it comes to social and political conditions. Elusive Dewey's understanding of the events and state of uncertainty, resolution which will eventually lead to a socio-political democratic configuration, whereby the opposite become the dynamic of self-constitution. Implicit Dewey's work for the politicized concept of the event of existence as precarious and stable experimentalism is a way of life that proceeds from immediate experiencing and learns constructively and to improve through social communication. Go to the contention. I defend the whole resolution contention. First, schools must be guardians of free expression, otherwise students will be willing to cede to external authorities after leaving educational institutions act. And since it is necessary to have free expression, routine instruction, and democratic administration schools of the short way of training human that's meant to authorities handle to express solicit that people will stand for free intelligence unless we pervades the school freedom is a condition of realization of potentialities and individual purpose of freedom to become social. These need to become your dictates of authority. This leads to the standard challenging authoritative dictates about appropriate speech necessary to produce a democratic ontology and self-critical citizens that challenge power structures. Verse 9. Courageous pedagogical skills and settles legal for my critical seed label organized as project can be directed toward the critique of institutional functioning as a means for democratic ideology because interrogatory qualities can be directly externally internal. Courage represents a principle needed to counter market for education. Second, avoiding censorship of even offensive ideas is necessary to safeguard universities as predictors of democratic values and avoid dogmatism and groupthink. Western York 17. First, intellectual humility also seek to engage with people with interpretation of what's represented as the leaders of great special emphasis engage in culture and understanding truth Germans one's ability to arguments matter. Censors cling to pure votes on external group, and censorship always holds the same purpose: to consolidate power and serve the interests of the group and control staff and since intent. Revolutionary periods and towards a concentration of power. Concentration claims that it's the best interest of the people. It is important not to be distracted in allowing any issue, no matter how useful and self displays freedom by means of speech. Go back to the framework lines. Understanding human nature is always particular. Overarching theories which try to make sense of any feature of human nature just ignores fundamental interrelation. Do we supposing right? I view within a correct habit the idea can be carried into execution only with a mechanism if defective. The best intention will yield bad results. Refusal to recognize the two separation of mind and body should be exceeded as a psychoanalysis. Think mental habits can be trained by purely malevolent moral theory influenced by psychological theories bound to emphasize consciousness of these set of acts which have public meaning and social relationship with psychological duties among habits will fix and center on condition which acts are formed. Cut at habits are formed.
Can you send out new versions of that?
Yeah. Do you want me to put the Rogers card or the Dewey card at the end?
I think.
What's happening right now?
I'm just resending the document. Okay. I sent it when you're good.
Okay, ready?
Yep.
What is a Deweyan democracy?
So it's the one that adheres to the proceduralist requirements that the app lays out. So there are a couple of things. Like first, the app has to, or any sort of system has to account for pluralism and not have the hegemonic ideal that is imposed on individuals of what the good is. It also has to require some sort of acknowledgement of history and historical verification of claims. And then also it requires some sort of representation of individuals within society. So
Okay.
there can't be,
No, that's fine.
Okay.
Your piece of, what is the analytic after the standard text? The first one about Japanese internment camps?
Yeah, so the argument is democracy plays a procedural role. So part of it is what questions the government should be even allowed to ask in the first place. So whether or not the government should be allowed to say, should we frame an innocent person in order to decrease crime because it will create a deterrent effect. So the thesis of the act is that the government shouldn't be even in a position to consider whether the consequences of those actions would be a good thing because it's structurally undemocratic.
Okay. What is history and how do we make sure our impacts are not isolated from it?
I mean, history is things that have happened in the past.
Is history only the past?
What do you mean?
That's the question.
Are you gonna go for times not real? So everything is history.
I mean, I wouldn't
think
put it past me.
okay,
My question
the
is
act
what's
is
history?
pretty we care about pragmatic consequences of things. So history in terms of what we mean when we say history textbooks and the history of the United States, not some sort of abstract if we looked at the time cube, then we would
Okay.
conceptualize history.
Your second piece of Dewey evidence you read the very last part of the app indicates that human nature is always specifically understood. How does this not contradict with your argument about certain epistemological questions of how materiality must work?
Wait, which evidence are you talking about?
The last card you read. The human nature is always specifically understood card.
Yeah, no, the argument is that there's not a universal human consciousness, that our understanding of ethics arises in response to particular conditions. There isn't one universal subject.
Okay, so how does that interact with the ideas of the affirmative claim that particular pragmatic rules ought to be or are normatively true?
Yeah, so the argument is that we look to context and we don't have a universal understanding of the way the world is, which requires a certain reconciliation in the political sphere, which requires respect for individuals in terms of the things that the app lays out.
Okay.
So it's
That's
the
fine.
reconciliation.
What is your last card is about practical effects and censorship. What is the argument here?
So the claim is that it's not just about what the argument says, but what the argument does. So the history of censorship and when people say that there must be a particular exception to speech, what that does is create a state of exception where the government has the authority to define what kind of speech is and is not legitimate, which only reifies their authority. So McCarthyism, where they're communism is really, really bad. Free speech is important, but just not right now. The state has the power to say things like that.
Okay, that's fine. Starting for it.
Oh, in Louisville. That's your hobby.
$225. Can we one off in case?
Did you email?
Actually, no, right now.
I can't stay in Kentucky. I hate this place.
Why?
It's so
I'm
hard.
sorry, it's Kentucky.
Is Texas any better though?
No.
Is anybody not ready?
Yeah, give me 1 second.
One off on the same.
Yep, that was, yep.
Let's do it.
Where's Scott? Okay, you good, Scott?
Yes.
Their mapping of the world through pragmatism and materialism is wrong. This attempt to impose rational order onto the world is violent and limits our ability to understand matter as vitalistic and self-organizing. Bennett 10. Metal is always an alloy, many working by geological and often human agencies. Metal workers and pieces of the materials that enable them rather than it was the. Sorry, skip that line. Sentences 2. Discover the structure of non-organic matter. The desire to see what metal can do rather than to know what metal is. Many have explored the contributions made by affect and public culture, whereas sensibilities influence ethics. These focus on the affect and not only simple rational analysis, but also not specific to humans, organisms, or even to bodies. Affect technologies, wind, vegetable minerals. However, cultural assemblies may be can resist glucose control. Social contracts having negative life of their own designs are an interstitial field of non-personal flows. But it must have insist on the presence of some kind of energetic agency whose spontaneity cannot be captured by the body or captured by the figures of the body by mechanism of nature. It is clear the materiality is no animating accessory. It is figured as itself in the active principle, and they understand subjectivity as whole, ideal, and coherent. This illusion is continued to uphold predetermined designs of the subject, and acting violence against those who pursue ideal that can never be reached are not a one. The reduction of subjectivity opposes itself to any theory which conceives subjectivity is given, which insists on a priori status, which remains immune to these effects of structure. Retarding makes no unity for one. We have no grounds for maintaining this, and for another, because treating subjectivity from the light of complex diversity opens a new possibility for its future and optimism. Production gives rise to images of mechanized techniques for producing objects according to preconceived design. Retarding approaches mechanism to machinism to characterize production as related to subjectivity, invoked in access to the extreme complexity and the enormous variety of connectivity. Technology, media, and art must have an active role. Subjectivity, organic and inorganic, corporeal and incorporeal, all contributing. We no longer need a recourse to universal subject, but instead diagnosis process of identification operating in diverse ways. We can help to highlight those factors that can contribute to producing detrimental and pinpoint mentally creative factors that have been blocked, and then get ready to experiment with new factors. While we recognize positive effects in institutions of fairly stable communities like high-minded subjects, we see all too plainly the insularity and prejudice. Political decisions are often made with the prepossession of shared community values, which amount to little more than a propagation of values that are dominant. And the role of the ballot is to vote for the best methodology to cultivate subjectivity. Offense indicates anything that permits subjects to explore their experiences and techniques for interacting with the outside world. Vote negative to engage in militant pragmatics or resistance to the organizational structures of grammar, language, and semiotics. This micropolitical action uses everyday resistance as the crux of overturning social constructions. This overturns the entirely political structures of language, which constructs standards of exclusion by redrawing the maps of signification. Qatari 11. Do it could be the order word for pragmatic micropolitics. Grammaticality becomes an object of Mill's opposition. One refutes that semiotic assemblages have been organized in phrases compatible with dominant significations. It's always possible to transform a semiotic assemblage here. The refusal to legitimate the signifying power becomes a political matter rather than agreeing to remain prisoner. One will endeavor to fabricate a new map of conscience. Micropolitical pragmatics will never accept redundancy. It will endeavor to make collective assemblage denunciation. It cannot matter simply of theoretical instruments, but fundamentally mutations in social pragmatics. The task of revolutionary pragmatics will thus insist bring about connections and able to annul the effects of signifying. The objective will consist in setting out the nature of the crystallizations of power that operate and lead to enunciation being nothing more than one's element amongst others. Pragmatic transformations will assemble their compositions as a function of diverse political strategies, pragmatic assumptions are machines. They do not have universal laws. They are subject to historical mutation. Markers can always be held in question. One will never be able to deduce different kinds of insurance points is always impossible. Generative and transformational. The simple fact of knowing traces and drawing a math fish out diagrammatic effects, they can transform the map case. Starting with a couple arguments on, like, as a little mini overview of the framework. First, cross-text proves that representational schemas are the basis point for their entirety, their framework. We will impact that representational schemas are not necessary movements for the affect and willingness to not understand solves. There's no reason that we have to have some kind of a normative reason why we should impose a meaning upon the world. There's always a different way we can just understand the affect relationships we have intersubjectively. Second, that subjectivity is ontologically prior, which means I roll the ballot question to the internal link to all of their arguments. They always presume a subjectivity, or i.e. what it means to be a subject in the world, but they have no independent reason as to what the subject actually looks like, which means it's a prior question because of its nature. Now you say, no, in pragmatic ethics can account for uncertainty. One leap of faith, we can still act with uncertainty. There's no reason to philosophical dilemma that needs to be resolved, which means we can just ignore it. Second, uncertainty is inevitable. We need to learn how to make ethics that account for uncertainty. And if they go for this argument is in fact this argument, then that means there's just a reason why they're critiquing an internal link to this. You say words are based on meaning that is arbitrary. One knowledge is the result of particular isolations we have. We will agree with that, but we should strive towards complexity. It proves our argument that you only try to go for the lowest common denominator. Are you making everything coherent? We think that's bad. Second, that words meaning are not something that can be staticized. It proves their words don't make any sense because words are so arbitrary that it's impossible for us to have any static notion of them to be able to interpolate them or even make ordered claims about them. Now you say ethical fear is most responsive to how people live. One abstraction idealism is necessary to understand larger structures of violence, which are not just based around individuals. They maybe understand how individual people live, but they cannot understand the abstract structures of, for example, economics or the political, which is something that they completely foreclose. Second, that complex world violence are interchangeable through a materialist lens. It requires a more nuanced understanding, which is why you should air quote the alternative. And now you say construct procedural mechanism for social decisions. One, we have an internal link questions of individual practices of micropolitics, exactly what alternative does, which means it is a procedural methodology. Make the draw of state class distinction of one AR. That's why we don't get access to this. Now they say democracy plays a procedural role. It's inevitable that governments take some form of action of how they frame the individual. It should be a question of how we can resist the government doing this, not some kind of normativity claim that doesn't have any enforceability, which means that the inevitability claims overwhelm. They should say anti-scheme isolated history. History is arbitrary, not a static understanding by which we can engage. It's not a basis for formulating ethics because it is something that is different from every individual perspective because of the plurality of understanding. This is exactly what genealogies are. And prove our argument. You say the only Deleuzian theory can ground the Deleuzian subject. We're not going to lose our argument specifically about Matari, but they need to be able to prove an internal link as to why Deleuzian subjectivity links to Matari. Seriously, it's different. It's come from his book, not Deleuze's book. Second, that all of our links are reasoned by the Deleuzian understanding is counter to the Deleuzian one. It doesn't make any sense if we're winning any of our link arguments. They staticize the world, especially in the context of our Matarian critique. Now you say human nature is always specifically understood when it contradicts the rest of the affirmative, in case that human nature is based on epistemologically in particular forms, which means that if you need a normativity claim to impact on this argument now, the second is that we agree with the things are only contextual, only we allow them to be understood specifically contextually and not in relationship to larger normativity claims. This means that we solve this internal link better. Second, third is our argument they claim in the context of society. They are not normative, which means they answer that. Now we have impact on the entire their concept of democracy on their contention level offense. It means we win the critique. Then they don't have the offense here. Now they say schools must guard free speech. One, they have no internal link from colleges to larger society. Means you can vote negative on presumption. There's no reason that democratic ontology will be constructed simply because colleges manage to do something. They're missing internal link here. Second, the circumvention. The bureaucracy means that the governments can always, and even public college universities can constantly create new mechanisms by which they can control speech through different justifications, which means that there's no reason they have a good internal link here. Now they say the last part of the app is Stack and Simpson. One, there's no warrant speech limitations on colleges do not scale upwards. They have no reason why it would cause a state of exception for all forms of the government, which is exactly the argument we gave above. Now some cards. Discourse is a fuel for change in the neoliberal method obscures the historical need for direct action until it sacks a team. The argument for free discourse ignores the direct action practices primarily responsible for both the achievements we consider progress and actual debates of age of social progress cannot be more historically unfounded. Jim Crow is not a thing of moral suasion. Colonialism did not cease thanks to open and academic dialogue. Free flow of dialogue had really been enough to generate social progress. Here in admit that free market society will inherently marshal that greater freedom. Direct action is always necessary, and absolute free speech comes at the cost of excluding marginalized groups on campuses. Making trade-offs with free speech is crucial to ensure the inclusion of minority students. This impacts on the framework because they simply indicate the question of making pragmatic policies. If we show that your pragmatic formulations, and if we prove that yours is not pragmatic for certain people and exclusive. Marcano 12. There should be dialogue around issues of oppression, but there is also need to protect people from violence. When someone calls a black person the N-word, he or she is not expressing a new idea or outlining a viable thought law that is the case we seek to prevent violence against marginalized groups. When our freedom speaker Ryan teaches on one's freedom from fear, then the freedom to not stand on regulated university regulations against hate speech are necessary for maintaining dignity. Skip the warming stuff. Idealistic understands that deliberative democracy are incoherent and inherently paradoxical. Democracy mandates exclusion to formulate consensus that makes true speech impossible and recreates arbitrary structures of power. Move 97. If we accept the relation of inclusion and exclusion, they're necessarily inscribed in the political constitution that people required by democracy. We have to acknowledge that the obstacles to the ideal speech situation, the consensus of that exclusion, are inscribed in the logic itself. Free and unconstrained public deliberation goes against the democratic purpose of drawing a frontier between us and them. Consensus that liberal democratic society isn't always will be the crystallization of relations of power to deny such as natural will be perceived as contingent articulations of the people who are particular in regime of inclusion and exclusion.
Okay, what do you mean?
You're warming.
When you're good.
Okay, one second.
I want you to fund the alt unconditionally.
Yeah.
I want you to concede that no part of the app is possible.
It's not a pick.
Like, I don't want it to be a floating pick in there.
No, it won't be a pick. The only arguments we'll make about the AF would be that the alt is able to resolve the impacts of the AF. We will not say that the
Okay, that's fine. Let's talk. What does the world of the alt look like?
It works like a world where we continually engage in microcosms or individual actions against language as a construction.
Wait, how do we engage in it? How do we rebel against language?
Right, so it's different things. It's using different forms of speech than the dominant significations. For example, Creole languages, things like Ebonics. All those are examples of intersections of language that is dominant and a non-dominant language that corrupts it. We also think that individual discussions.
So we use language in a way that's not traditional, right?
Yeah, that's one example.
So what if the AF meant the opposite, and I was just using language in a way that's not traditional?
Sorry?
What if the AF, what I was trying to say was the opposite of what I said, but I'm not trying to be traditional about language, so that's why I'm concerned with the AF.
I'm not even sure what you're saying. This is too many.
Wait,
it's too late for
is it bad if you don't know what I'm saying?
A little bit.
Oh, no. Okay.
It's bad for me strategically, of course.
Does your strategy matter?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're not making a pre-fiat claim per se in the 1 and C. We're making a claim about the larger methodological context, right?
What?
We're making a claim about methodologies. We think that language is a bad method. We're not saying great,
Wait,
can't
if
speak
language
English.
is a bad method, why did you use it to communicate the NC?
Right. So you can make a performativity claim. Our argument is the debate should be a question of competing methodologies.
Okay. So that's fine. Let's talk about your responses to the AF. So you say that the AF is bad because we need a universal understanding of truth.
No, I said that you use a universal understanding of truth.
Wait. Okay. So bad.
Yes.
Okay. How's the AF universal?
Right. So particularly, a lot of your arguments are predicated on normativity claims, i.e. that the uncertainty of the external world requires X, or words are...
Is the alt normative?
No.
Then why should we do it?
Right. So the alternative is not normative in the sense that it makes larger ethical claims about how the world has to function.
Does it
makes claims about how it should act in a contingent world that is structured in a particular way.
Okay. So it is normative.
If that's what you think normativity is, we have it.
Or wait, it says that we should do something, right?
Yes, I think if you think that's what normativity is, then we have a different conception of normativity.
Okay, cool. You said that the AF strives towards the lowest common denominator. Why does the AF erase particularity?
Right, so our argument is that the affirmative, where was that argument at?
It was on Pierce.
Sorry, I'm really tired. Yeah, so our argument was that you try to make knowledge compartmentalizable into very particular strategies, i.e. speech, when we think we should be open to the complexity of things.
Okay, so is it that speech is bad, or that speech is not all that we have?
A bit of both. Your particular discussion or use of speech in the AF is bad, and speech isn't all we got. Yeah, wait.
Okay, starting from why is my speech bad, but yours no?
Right, so our argument is that the speech, i.e. enacted by the AF, not you're talking.
Is it bad to make claims about how the world is?
It is bad to make normative, universal claims. It is okay to make contingent claims.
Okay. What's the terminal impact of decay? It's an inability to understand the world, right?
Yeah, it stops our ability to create subjectivity.
Okay, and subjectivity is important because it enables us to understand the world.
It is a necessary component of being able to act, think, and do all of that.
And understand the world.
Yes, probably.
Okay. I want you to kick the argument that you do a negative presumption.
Sure.
Okay, 129 left. The order will be AC, NC, but you can flow, or the AC then the K, but you can flow the moving overview. You could either flow it on the app or on a sheet of paper.
All right, let's do it.
Is there anything new you're like waiting?
Yeah, I'm sending it.
And when, at what point is the overview?
What do you mean?
Well, you said
Oh yeah. It'll be
Overview.
first the overview, and then the case top down.
overview case K.
Uh,
Have you sent it yet?
yeah.
It'll be better if you just accept it. You'll save yourself a lot of mental time.
Really?
Yeah.
But how am I gonna get home?
I don't know, but you will.
No, does we have that variable? So when you go to the airport, if you end up missing your flight and they have to know this like that day.
This is the last available spec.
Okay. When everyone's good.
Thanks, 1 second, sorry.
I'll just talk to Tice after this.
I just got my sweatshirt on because it's cold.
Waste all that.
It's gonna be, it's unfortunate.
Yeah, I needed more
Dude,
time
I'm
to figure out what was wrong with
I
your
can get
arguments.
there by like 7:45. Security that. I can't. 7:45.
I'm good when everyone else is.
Let's do it.
Cool. The role of the ballot is to vote for the debater who best advances a pragmatic approach to social policies for 1 extend seconds of the time represents assembly time the function of educational frameworks that means it justifies the educational spaces like the need to be oriented by pragmatism investigation, which is a jurisdictional argument where we filter pragmatism to except there's some law pragmatism because how we come to know the world that deeply influences our ability to even study theater structures without my method we cannot know the correct response to social dilemmas nor can we even properly understand this dilemma. It's not that my framework is better than yours, it's that my only framework has any hope at all, which means that pragmatism is the only viable method of inquiry because there can be no personal that's not oriented on historical precedent and experimental methodology. That also means that extraordinary for the absence of the NC is the only way that we can have a coherent methodology towards understanding anything, including language reactions to civic circumstances. Now, go to the case. Example concept that uncertainty is inevitable. We cannot employ cross-border handling external walls that necessitates of a focused and experienced economic system. We have the capacity to have forever to come. Right, you said that we always act with uncertainty and that uncertainty is inevitable. Oops, you read terminal defense, your K in the NC. The impact of the K is that we can never correspond with reality. But you also in the NC said that we will always be uncertain about the external world that exists and also have conceded that we cannot know anything outside of our experience. Besides, the K is inevitable and the K is always extend. Here's the meaning is constrained to the nearest to what makes a practical difference. Only the crazy possibility of epistemic assessment. You said that it's transversal is fundamental and I know the AC. There's no particularity of experience and not making hegemonic universal claims to say that words can be random and we cannot interpret anything new. You have considered that the only way that we can have a fact of the matter between resolving any individual arguments unless in a pragmatic notion that truth that's experientially grounded. Look, you all said that you will only vote on arguments you understand it is incoherent for the negative. You both say that we reject language while using language theory. You say that abstract structures are a good thing now. You have considered that the only way we understand things is through particularity. Look, the entirety of the NC is a double source in both sides that we have to have an abstract understanding, but that we also have to look to particularity, which is a performative contradiction. Now, waste no one will ever take your position theory seriously. Said, let us be that ethical theories respond to question demands of particular conditions. Objective series can be extensive focus on abstract absolute ideals is impossible, which is terminally fits all of your arguments. You consider that the K is striving at something that we can literally never attain, which also precludes your K. You provide a static understanding which reinforces academic particularities and supposedly universal. It also means permutation to do the also that for other instances to do the optimist when ethics has no sort of generalistic alternative that says that there's a universal way in which we can have a possibility, which means that you prefer the often I always said you say that micropolitics is a procedure. No, it's the wrong form of procedure since it does not respond to the ethical demands that, or in this specific instance, you say that it's a question of how to resist the government, but no, the government has to reconcile with the epistemological demands of pragmatism, which means that in some circumstances it can be that you now accentuate that effects cannot be isolated from history since historical reason or belief is pragmatically useful, give reason our favorite. You say that history, and we do not know what history means. No, you consider that intuitions and experience define everything, which means that we do understand history now. Go to the last minute and extend being an almost summary to the constitution shape of pragmatic principles, freedom, and let those of freedom teaches easily threatened to advance open interest you. I've also considered Rosenfeld and I already that the only way for radical revision of society is through discussion, which means that your arguments about hate speech go basically the only way that we can reform society to be more inclusive is through doing the also it's a stuff and second sense, the evolving arguments in terms of practical effects of leadership is always about consolidation of power, which means that the effect of decay and saying that free speech is a bad thing is about consolidation of power, which is you just reaffirm the government. You can see that history comes first now. Okay. One point, the opposite rejection of universalism since the middle of the particular context means that knowing two point, you map rationality onto the irrationality by claiming that there's a universal structure of the whole, which means that you reaffirm your effective point, there's no self, the self is fractured and incomplete, and then we look at that particularity in order to construct a notion of how we reconcile that with politics, which means that I definitely didn't like consider notion of subjectivity format. It's I only the as a coherent notion of epistemology for how the state can literally take any action off that whatsoever. Also, I find the aspect of language and the idea of signification in order to determine what the meaning with the claims of decay, which is that in circular 6 line, 6 point permutation, do both the app is not static, rather it evolves over time. It says that we have to look to particularity of circumstances, which means that the app can change in order to include the alternative 7. You say that you use language and that language is important. CX is binding. We need to have language, which means that you're fracturing of language is about you. CX is binding, which means you can't answer this argument. The next thing also, each one permutation do the app, and then the alt app is the only thing that leaves space for us to engage in criticism.
Do you remember how much time I have?
4 minutes. Oh, no, wait. Just kidding. I was wrong. That was the last debate.
I think it's 225. 225, yeah.
That makes it right. All right,
Wait, sorry, did someone write down how much I had? I know it's between 1 and 2 minutes.
don't ask me.
129.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I know. Get the W. I think it's 50. I think it's all. Yeah, I did see that. I don't know.
Okay. I'm going to send it out. It's just manual and stuff. The order is the case, basically top down, starting with my little mini framework overview, then the critique. That should be sent out.
Wait, which was the framework overview?
It was like the subjectivity arguments.
Okay.
I'm sorry, you're starting with her overview or?
No, my little mini overview.
Okay.
Basically just the framework. Okay. Is anybody not ready?
Wait, you just resent the NCD shock.
It should be at the very bottom.
Cool. It's this stuff. Okay.
Yeah.
This stuff.
Okay. Anybody not ready? Great. The 1AR is full of the argument that you conceded without actually answering things. You conceded this 1 and 2 point are overview of the framework, but take out the entirety of the framework they go for. The first, that representational schemas are not necessary. Movements towards affect and willingness to not understand solves. There's no reason that there's a philosophical imperative to be able to understand the world. This is only something you have cognitively become used to. Do not let her get away with this without physiologically or philosophically justifying why that is the case. We have one impact turned to representational schemas, which we'll get to in the critique, which is a reason why they don't get access to that. Second is that you concede that subjectivity is ontological prior. We will extend the role of the ballot here. The role of the ballot is to go for this methodology to cultivate subjectivity. Subjectivity is an ontological condition which encompasses techniques and processes by which beings interact with the world, which is obviously a prior question to be able to talk about the pragmatics by which subjects engage in it. Subjectivity is the gateway issue, is the foundation which all forms of ethics and practice are constructed. We're targeting 11 evidence indicates that cultivating these practices is a necessary component of everyday experience, which takes out all of her arguments that she's gone for. Now, the case offense. The biggest problem in this debate is she spends a lot of time in case not actually answering any of our arguments. She says that power is a consolidation of power means that it takes out the move evidence. This does not answer the subject or the philosophical claim of the move evidence, which interacts in the level of both the framework debate and everything else. Extend move 77. Democracy is inherently contradictory and contradicts the thesis of free speech, which means the act double turns itself. The 8 point is that it mandates exclusion of particular opinion in order to consolidate consensus. The creation of laws does not get decided on in any end goal proves. The second is necessarily describes divisions in order to create a constituency known as the people, that those are outside the state, not considered important, and otherwise all prove it makes democracy or discourse arbitrary. It's the opposite of rational. It merely solidifies contingent power relationships. Absolute, which turns the case. There's no new two-hour articulation of why the framework can exclude that. She had all the time in the world to do it. She just instead of just extended a bunch of flippy arguments, which means there's no new two-hour articulation. Furthermore, you have conceded the Tolet evidence, which indicates that discourse is a neoliberal myth, which takes out any furniture award she goes for. That would take out the K on the contention level, because discourse is not something that has historically ever done anything to create change. It's only been direct action that has had discourse as a kind of facade that has been used to represent it. For example, colonialism was only stopped by Fanon writing extremely radical literature and being able to take those down by acting on them constructively. The Haitian Revolution and the Civil Rights Movement all prove our thesis that they have no offense against this. They conceded 2 case turns. This is like the second debate in a row. I should win on case turns. Now go to the critique. As said, which 11 vote negative to engage in militant pragmatics. Pragmatics in this case is the name for strategy, just as Marxism, Kantianism, or direct action are. This interprets linguistics in a way that it focuses on its material roots based in the body and complex forms of expression. It allows continually points out the contingent nature of grammar as a societal contract that is arbitrary and drawn along lines of power. Voting negative plays with language and inputs into an assemblage of enunciation, a complex relationship that intersects the power of our voice or incoherent reading and comparative relationships to normal linguistic strategies is both theoretical, i.e. building new academic understandings, and material, enacted in a lot of things that happen in terms of the real world. Now, there is a couple arguments that she makes that move along the line by line there. First, she said she mapped rationality onto irrationality. This presumes that performativity comes first. She has not one a reason why you should evaluate performativity. Offense argument is only that the judge should evaluate the best methodology to be able to view the world or be able to vote on an offense defense paradigm. They have no reason that performativity comes first. They only appeal to your kind of self or your kind of determination that you already think this. Second, they say self is fractured and incomplete. We try to recognize that in politics. We agree that the self is fractured. That is our argument, but our argument is that we need to move in such a way that allows the fractured subject to exist and expand rather than trying to satisfy that, which means that we only take it out. You say that we have the only coherent active epistemology, the subjectivity arguments take that out. You say the actualizing language that claims to the K again, it doesn't have any argument. Second, that contingent use of language are necessary, especially when it comes to being able to communicate our theories within the space of the debate round, which means that we have a defense again. You say permutation do both. The app evolves over time. One links are disadvantages. We're winning that we will be that you were if we win that being able to evolve through the Deweyan framework is bad because that evolution is always staticized. Then that's the reason we vote. You say CX is binding, we need to have language. Yes, we've already answered that. You say perm to the F and the alt. First, when it's disadvantage to the affirmative, then that proves another why the reason why the AF isn't necessary, something that the case or net benefits of the permutation or net benefits to the critique, and the reason why you can't do the permutation. Second, the footnoting just that they constantly push the idea of radical militancy to the back burner, which makes it a constantly moving target. They never actually accomplish the alternative because they always forefront some kind of liberal policy that fits in the middle. First, third is the alt has to come first. Subjectivity framing indicates that only we can formulate a coherent theorem referring to the subject. Now on the link. We'll isolate multiple links as per a piece for not a one-link evidence versus subjectivity. Their ethical theorizing is dependent on a wholly unified subject, a rational actor who goes through the mechanisms of things like pragmatics rather than the complexity of subjectivity and abstract desire. Subjectivities are merely bodies subject to totalizing violence or being able to understand things through pragmatic relationships. They are not anything that has a form of creativity or essence that is not articulable, which means the reason why we are taking out this, the reason why they prove their link argument. Second, signification, their arguments, their ethos, their impacts, and their ethical priorities are all dependent on solidified forms of representation that we must be able to understand the world world is material or interact with it in such a way which proves that our argument that you have a static understanding of the subject, you've conceded that it causes serial policy, or the argument that concedes it causes serial policy failure instead of dynamically understanding situations of violence. They are merely collapsed to a binary of the oppressor and the oppressed. It also causes psychological violence because individuals are constantly striving to reach an ideal that they cannot reach because it is ideal in the first place, which means there's no material connection. The terminal impact is psychocultural violence, which I just explained. They never fulfill that. Now let's go to the permanent case. I'm not going to concede that. Don't worry. Where'd it go? Oh God, where's that argument? Maybe I will concede it. No. Oh, she's in turn to the F and then do the negative in all other instances. If we're winning a strong link, then it's a reason why you shouldn't do the F in this instance. Particularly, our links are predicated on the idea of speech or representational schemas, which I mean all of our reasons are good. No 2A articulations of permutations because if our 1NC or 2 in our strategy is predicated on what the 1NC went for. Yeah. So don't be like hold the 2AR to a very high standard after the blip storm that was the 1AR. We have like wide-reaching, overarching claims that we have won that take out any of the implicit or explicit arguments she's going to extend from this theory framework.
Someone timing.
What? I'm turning myself.
Sorry.
No, I don't know what that was about.
I know about that. Everyone's like,
Who was responsible for that?
I don't know. Just everyone was just like, "Fucker should see he has a flight to go to."
Someone was just like, it's my time. Just so I can see drama.
Love it. All right, have that your opportunity to go with me as well.
It's my time.
Or, I'm going to take the rest of the prep. It'll be an overview, then the case, then the head. Ready? Grant needs to learn how to flow better. He conceded that he had performatively contradicted himself, and he also conceded that performative contradictions that way, which means that if I extend the performative contradictions, you just have to vote affirmative. That is weighing that is conceded from the linear. I will also win specific weighing as to why your links are much more severe than my links, which means that will be sufficient to vote out on the permutation that you should just vote against him for linking into his own criticism to go to the case. Extend the answer to the third argument about how he said that abstract structures are a good thing to understand the world, about how that is the entirety of the double term, since you just say that we should look to context and be super particular about things, that we cannot have a universal understanding of the world, but you also say that you do have a universal understanding of the world. You extend performative contradictions that way since they undermine the legitimacy of your position and movement, and it means that no one will ever take your advocacy seriously if you will just completely contradict yourself, which always everything. Also, the only argument that he could potentially have against this is a methodological claim, but no, maybe the main point is that if it's just a methodological claim and it's not about performativity, then obviously he doesn't have access to any of my links into the critique, because since there are links about the way in which my performance was presented, which means that C-point is an argument, and C-point is arguments about the way in which you logically orient yourself and can export the round, which means that his claim should definitely link to that. Also, for when you conceded arguments about how most of the arguments you're making are huge double terms, which means that your links will definitely outweigh mine. So, go to the top of the case. Extend that the whole king is that most of the arguments he makes are double terms, since he goes back and forth between claiming that we need to understand the world but also saying that the app attempts to understand the world, which is a bad thing, which means that you make huge tension between all of your arguments since you strive to do exactly what your case is the opposite of that. Also, more weighing for performative contradictions when individuals propose a methodology, they should be more familiar with it, which means that your links are definitely much harder to the criticism since you were aware of the methodologically appropriate way to do things. The subjectivity is which means that now on the line by line, or now in the critique. The only now extend that the app rejects universalism, which means that he links me from the critique, which also means that I do outweigh since most of the critique is a notion of universalism, since we have to focus on subjectivity that way, since it relates to the entire thesis of what the criticism is, where you conceded that I do not link to that framing, which means that you on the highest level link to your own K. You also extend the second argument about how you map rationality onto irrationality by trying to make sense about the way the world is. Your only response to this is that it's about performativity and the best method, and you should care about an office double bind. Or actually, no, performativity is definitely related to what the best method is. It's a question of how we orient the world and how we understand things. Look, the round is very, very clear. He conceded that performative contradictions outweigh. He conceded that performance matters when he was answering the app. In the 2 and R, he just says there's no impact to performativity on a bunch of arguments about how he links into the K. He definitely links into the K since he reads a ton of arguments about how the impact of the critique is that we can't look to universalism, we have to embrace subjectivity. But then also when he's answering the case, says that we have to look to a universal notion of truth, which means on the highest level, he double turns himself, which means that you vote him down. I concede all of this framing, but you vote him down on its own K.
I sent out the marked version of the 1NC document. I did not read the extensions of or not, like verbatim. I only used it as like a skeleton, so just want to make that clear.
Oh no, sorry, something didn't do. There we go.
Goodbye. I'm gonna make it. I'm gonna make this.
Are you sure?
If the security line is more than 15 minutes, we're gonna stay in Kentucky for the night in the city where you know no one.
Should I do it?
You need to go if you're gonna make it.
I'm trying to decide. Should I go?
Are they gonna get you another flight if you don't?
No.
Well, then. I don't know what to tell you, Ron.
All right. Well, I guess I could get my RFP one day. What? Oh, that's really sad for you. Oh.
It would be weird.
I had that in the back of my mind. They just
You know, it's pretty bad. So, right, I go, it's like, she should have gone for a semantic height. We're on Greek. Yes, I would have gone for it. Put on the yeah. Yeah.
Do we just want to give the argument out for Rod?
I
Well-
think he left.
Yeah, he left. He wanted to try to make the airport because.
Maybe put him on speakerphone.
That would be good.
Maybe that's something that can happen.
I don't wanna like.
Oh, no, his
Hey, are you-
phone's dead.
Are you in a car yet?
Maybe not.
Okay. Squirrels and you're wondering
Yeah. Okay, come back then. That's great.
Is he missing it?
Thank you. He hasn't left yet, so he's coming back.
So wait, what's going on, Chris?
He's coming back to give his RFD.
Oh, that's so
You
sweet.
missing his flight?
He didn't say that part. I don't know. I ran.
Outside there. I'm liking this.
Well, I've also managed to lose my suitcase, so my life just sucks.
I also lost that sweet sweater I got, the WDI one. My life's just kind of.
You should check if there's any flights coming out of Cincinnati.
All right, everyone's here, I think.
No,
wait, yeah, it's fine.
Okay. All right.
I know, do you wanna?
I don't know the decision.
Okay, congratulations to both debaters. It was a 2-1 decision for the F.
I sat. I, funny enough, did not vote for the 2AR because I could not understand it. I don't think a lot of these double turn arguments make a lot of sense to me, especially given how much he is explaining the theory in the 2NR and why necessarily they wouldn't contradict. I think his explanations for why your call for universality is bad are not synonymous with his arguments about why trying to understand truth on a subjective level is able to give us a better understanding of the world, which is why trying to inscribe universal ways to achieve truth is bad. And I think that all of that explanation makes sense to me. I think he's giving me a pretty in-depth explanation. And I also don't understand why, even if it's a perf con, he loses. The sort of impact, you're trying to frame it as like a theory argument almost, or like the highest layer, but I'm really quite unsure why it comes first. So a lot of the first minute and a half of the 2AR did not make a lot of sense to me, especially given, that's my Uber, especially given his explanation. The last argument I think I can vote on, which I come very close to voting for you, is this contradictions argument about language being necessary in order to communicate messages, which means that proves the permutation. But I think that there's a link, there's a link differential he's establishing in the 2NR between using language and using it as a sort of decision-making paradigm in order to find truth in the first place, which I don't think really you answer. And second, he has a bunch of like other 2 or 3 arguments that I don't think you answered either. The last thing is, I think that also he's making a lot of arguments about why subjectivity comes first that you're conceding. And his alternative seems to be the only thing that can solve, and you're conceding a lot of disadds to the permutation. So for me, at least, it's tried after all.
Okay, go catch your flight.
Yeah,
But-
thank you for staying around.
Thanks for having the same. We don't need like.
Thanks, Rob. Okay, so I actually, all right, my understanding of the arguments was pretty much the exact opposite of Rod's. The argument that you go for in the 2AR is one of the arguments that one of the few arguments that I thoroughly understand in the round. I think that there's simply not enough of an explanation of what a methods debate is and why her, well, first off, there isn't a direct address, of her claim, but more importantly, why a methods debate is so much different from the turn she is explaining to your critique and why it would mean that the performative contradiction, which seems like a bad thing and is conceded that the weighing makes it a very bad thing, would not link. I understand the story of why you link to your own critique. I can think of a possible world in which a methods debate would potentially resolve in your favor, because you could say, yeah, I did something contradictory and it was bad, but this thing I was proposing in the 1NC makes more sense, and my links only care about what her AF said, not what she did. I'm not saying it's bad that she spoke in English, and I can conceptualize of that, but I would not be able to tie that to something that was said in the debate. So I vote AF.
Yeah, so I just didn't feel like voting for you, so I didn't. I also didn't appreciate the reference that you made on Case to Brianna's round. I think it's kind of fucked up to make fun of Black kids just to get laughs in the room. So I decided I didn't want to vote for you. But I could also vote in performative contradiction because you kind of conceded her analysis. So I could vote there too. It doesn't matter.
Cool. Great.
You guys hang on. Thanks, y'all. Oh, this is not mine.
Yeah, thanks.
Good.